So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at some fascinating source material from the Pembroke Welsh Corgi Health Academy and really focusing on training and behavior today.
Yeah, it's such a great topic. There is so much to unpack with this specific breed.
There really is. And our mission today for you listening is to basically decode the mind of the Pembroke Welsh Corgi.
Right.
We want to reframe what so many people call stubbornness into what it actually is, which is just supreme intelligence.
Right, and environmental awareness. It's totally misunderstood.
Exactly. So picture a normal 5 minutes in a house with a corgi. Dad is heading for the front door, jingling his car keys.
Oh, classic trigger.
Yeah, and a kid comes barreling across the kitchen linoleum in socks, and then mom is walking through the room carrying a plate of hot food.
Which is just total uncoordinated chaos.
It's chaos. And the corgi is suddenly everywhere at once. Like, he's barking at the door, he's cutting straight across the kid's path, basically tripping him, and he's tracking that plate of food like a heat-seeking missile.
And then racing right back to the door to bark at the keys again, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. And families see this sequence of events, and they almost always label the dog with one word. They call them bossy.
Yeah, they feel like the dog is actively trying to run the household, and they are just, living in his kingdom.
Right. But looking at the sources today, that interpretation is completely backward. That dog isn't trying to be the boss. He is perfectly executing thousands of years of genetic programming.
We're really looking at a masterclass in intelligence here. It's an almost unmatched level of environmental awareness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to transform a chaotic household into a calm one, we kind of have to understand the specific hardware running inside that dog's head, right?
Definitely. I mean, think about what this breed was engineered to do. We are talking about a compact, short-legged dog that was bred to move massive 1,200-pound cattle across fields.
Which is terrifying if you think about it.
It is. To survive that without getting crushed, a dog has to possess a hyper-vigilant radar. They have to read the micro-movements of a cow shifting its weight, anticipate a kick, dodge hooves.
All while keeping one eye on the human handler standing 50 yards away.
Right. That level of situational awareness is staggering. The dog is processing dozens of kinetic variables every single second.
So when you take that highly tuned processor and just drop it into a suburban kitchen, of course it tracks the kid, the plate, and the door all at once.
Exactly. The hardware is performing flawlessly. It's a feature of the breed, not a bug.
Which brings us to the single biggest myth about this breed that we really need to debunk today. If these dogs have this massive cognitive capacity, if they're genuinely one of the smartest breeds most people will ever live with, why does everyone constantly call them stubborn?
Oh, the stubborn label. It's everywhere.
It is. Reading through these sources, the common complaint makes them sound like a defiant teenager who, knows the rules, but just flat out refuses to follow them out of pure spite.
Yeah, and that perception fundamentally misunderstands how canine intelligence works, especially in herding breeds.
How so?
Well, we tend to conflate a dog being smart with dog being eager to please, like a golden retriever who just desperately wants to make you happy.
Right, the classic people-pleaser dog.
Exactly. But strong cognition in a corgi doesn't automatically equal obedience. It actually means they are independent problem solvers. They're, little scientists running behavioral experiments every minute of the day.
So a stubbornly barking corgi isn't crossing their arms in defiance.
No, not at all. They are just running an experiment that previously yielded a positive result.
Fast learning means they quickly figure out which cues to follow.
Right. But a high processing speed also means they figure out which person in the house drops the most crumbs, or which specific cabinet squeak means the cheese drawer is open.
Oh, wow. They really dial into the details.
They do. And they figure out how to get the back door open by barking at a specific pitch. If barking at the door makes a human get up and open it, the experiment was a success.
The behavior gets reinforced.
Exactly. If nipping at a running child's heels changes the child's trajectory, well, the strategy worked. They're just repeating strategies that have a proven track record of paying off.
So what looks like stubbornness is actually just a dog choosing the most efficient path to a reward.
That's spot on. Our sources highlight 4 distinct reasons a corgi ignores a command, and literally none of them are spite.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First is strong competing motivation, meaning whatever they're looking at is simply more interesting than you. Second is an unclear cue from the human.
Which happens a lot, I'm sure.
All the time. Third is inconsistent consequences between family members. Like dad lets him jump on the couch, but mom yells at him for it.
Mixed signals. And the fourth?
The fourth is simply too much distraction for the level of training the dog currently has.
It's like expecting a kindergartner to successfully complete a calculus exam in the middle of a noisy playground. You can't be angry when they fail.
That is a perfect analogy. And that dictates how we respond when they don't do what we want. Pushing a bright, highly analytical dog with harsh intimidation doesn't produce an obedient dog.
It just fries their analytical brain
Right.
and induces fear, right?
Absolutely. A fear-based response completely shuts down the learning centers of the brain. If you use harshness on a dog bred to hold its ground against a charging cow, you often get a dog that becomes avoidant or chronically anxious or even actively resistant.
They learn that humans are unpredictable and dangerous.
Exactly, which destroys the collaborative working relationship you actually need with them.
It's essentially punishing them for being the hyper-aware scientists we bred them to be.
Yes.
So the secret to training them isn't forcing compliance through dominance. It's rigging their behavioral experiments so that the choices we want them to make are the ones that pay out the highest reward.
Yes, exactly.
It's like getting paid at a job,
Yeah.
right? Like showing someone a $20 bill beforehand to beg them to mop the floor is bribery.
Right, nobody wants to rely on bribery.
But handing them their paycheck at the end of a hard week of work, that is just a functional economy, that is how learning happens.
What's fascinating here is that paycheck analogy is crucial because it highlights how motivation shifts based entirely on context.
Give me an example of that.
Well, a piece of dry kibble might be a fantastic paycheck when you are alone in a quiet kitchen practicing the set command. But if you take that dog into the front yard and a squirrel runs across the fence,
The market value of that kibble plummets to zero.
literally zero.
The squirrel is $1 million distraction. A penny's worth of dry kibble isn't going to buy their attention.
Exactly. You have to match the value of the paycheck to the difficulty of the environment. You start training in a low distraction zone where success is actually realistic, and you build up the environmental pressure gradually.
You don't test the dog at the hardest level before the foundation is solid.
Never. And while food is obviously a massive motivator for most Pembrokes, limiting yourself to just food ignores the incredibly powerful environmental rewards available to a dog that is this tuned in.
So if they are obsessively pulling toward a fascinating scent on a fire hydrant, the scent itself becomes the paycheck.
Yes. Getting access to that sniff is a huge payout. Being allowed to continue a walk, or initiating a quick 3-second game of tug of war, or simply getting the release cue to sprint through the back door into the yard.
Those are all rewards.
Highly reinforcing ones. If they offer you eye contact and a polite sit, the door opens. The environment rewarded the calm behavior.
A quick tactical note from the sources, though, for anyone using a lot of food rewards. Training treats absolutely count toward their daily caloric intake.
Oh, that is so important to remember.
Yeah, these are small, long-backed dogs.
Yeah.
Carrying excess weight puts severe strain on their joints and spine. The strategy the sources suggest is to use part of their actual measured daily kibble for routine household training.
And reserve the really high-value stuff, the big paychecks like plain chicken or cheese, for the highly distracting environments outside.
Right. Now, what about the actual training sessions? Because corgis are so smart.
Another vital piece of the training economy is the duration of the work. Corgis genuinely hate repetitive drilling.
Because their processing speed is too high.
Exactly. If you ask them to sit and they do it perfectly 3 times in a row, they do not understand why you are asking for a fourth.
They're like, I already showed you I know this.
Right. They get bored and they will simply walk away. You have to keep sessions under 5 minutes, vary the location, vary the difficulty, but keep the actual mechanical expectation consistent.
The sources flag a massive communication error here that almost every dog owner is guilty of at some point repeating a cue.
Oh yes, the repeated cue.
If you stand over the dog and say, sit, 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 S-I-T, you aren't providing clarity. You are degrading the signal-to-noise ratio.
You're just training the dog that the first 4 requests literally do not require action.
It teaches them to wait for the escalated tone of voice before they bother complying.
Exactly. You get their attention first, you deliver the cue exactly once, and you give them the physical space to process it and succeed.
This fundamentally changes how you use their name too, doesn't it?
It does. A dog's name should be a predictor that something amazing is about to happen. It is an invitation to engage.
So it shouldn't just be a sharp warning word right before a correction.
Never. If the name predicts punishment, they will stop responding to it entirely.
Okay, so that environmental radar we've been talking about doesn't just power down when you unclip the leash, but the stakes get infinitely higher when we take the dog outside.
Oh, completely.
Out there, their deepest, hardest wired herding instincts are triggered by an overwhelming amount of stimuli. Here's where it gets really interesting.
The outside world is tough for a herder.
If my corgi has a reactive meltdown every time a jogger or a bicycle goes past, the intuitive human response is often exposure therapy.
Like just standing there making them watch.
Yeah, just grab the leash, stand right next to a busy bike path, and force them to watch until they realize the bikes aren't a threat.
Yeah, the sources shut that strategy down immediately.
Why is that a bad idea?
Because flooding a dog with their triggers does not teach calm observation. It actually overloads their amygdala, the fear center of the brain.
So their stress just spikes.
Exactly. Cortisol spikes, their heart rate skyrockets, and they enter a state of pure panic. And when a dog is flooded, the cognitive learning part of their brain is entirely offline.
So me standing there yelling sit while they're lunging at a bike is literally just background noise to a hijacked nervous system.
It's completely useless. Learning cannot occur in a state of panic. You have to build exposure through distance.
Meaning move away from the bike path.
Right. If the dog is barking and lunging, you are too close to the trigger. You must move backward, creating physical distance, until you reach a threshold where the dog can look at the bicycle and still accept a high-value treat.
So that specific distance is the only zone where the brain is calm enough to build new positive associations.
Precisely.
That hijacked nervous system is usually what drives the #1 behavioral complaint the sources mention: barking.
Barking is a huge one. But we need to be realistic. A totally silent corgi is a biological impossibility.
Right, they were bred to use their voice to move stubborn cattle and alert the farmer to predators.
Barking is a tool for them, but not all barking is the same. There is alert barking at a sound, excitement barking during play, frustration barking when a toy is stuck.
Demands barking for dinner.
Oh yeah, demand barking,
Right.
and fear barking at strangers. You cannot treat a fear response the same way you treat a demand for cheese.
The sources are fiercely adamant about the wrong way to handle this. Reaching for a shock collar or an ultrasonic punishment device is disastrous.
Those devices suppress the outward signal without addressing the internal emotional state.
It's like putting a bandage on a broken arm.
Worse, imagine you are terrified of spiders, you scream when you see one, and someone shocks you for screaming.
Wow, okay, that paints a picture.
Right. You aren't suddenly less afraid of the spider. You've just learned that spiders also predict physical pain. The anxiety just compounds.
So to actually fix the barking, you have to break the visual loop. If they stand at the living room window, obsessing over the mail carrier, you close the blinds.
You cut the wire to the alarm system, basically.
That way.
Then you give their highly active brain an incompatible behavior. You teach them to go to a designated, comfortable mat in a quiet corner when the doorbell rings, and you reward them heavily for staying there.
Because a dog's brain cannot simultaneously chew a high-value bone on a mat and throw a frantic barking fit at the front door.
Exactly. You are overriding the software with a better, more rewarding task.
We see that same need to override instincts with nipping and herding, don't we?
Absolutely. Moving feet, kids running in the yard, skateboards, these all trigger a deep kinetic need to chase and control the movement.
And people often excuse it. They say, oh, it's just breed behavior. They can't help it.
It is genetic, sure, but it is entirely unacceptable pet behavior that can escalate to serious bites if ignored.
So you can't just hope the dog will eventually develop impulse control.
No, you actively redirect the herding instinct by giving them a different target. This is where a technique like hand targeting comes in. You teach the dog to bump their nose against your open palm on command.
So breaking down the mechanics of that, you are taking the dog's kinetic drive to interact with movement, and you are giving it a safe outlet.
Yes. A nose bump to the hand satisfies the urge to intercept a moving object, but it completely removes their teeth from the equation.
That is brilliant.
You manage the environment by preventing the chase in the first place, and you give the instinct a safe release valve.
And I imagine that management extends heavily to leash walking. People look at a 30-pound corgi and assume it's a small, manageable dog.
Do not underestimate the sheer physical force generated by that low center of gravity.
They're essentially tiny tanks built to hold ground against livestock.
Tiny tanks is the perfect description. The physics of their body means they can pull with surprising torque.
But the goal isn't military precision heel work where they stare at your face for a mile, right?
Not at all. It is just safe, cooperative walking without dislocating your shoulder. The golden rule of leash walking loops right back to our behavioral experiments.
Which is?
Do not let pulling successfully get them to the thing they want. If a dog locks onto the scent of a discarded hamburger wrapper and drags you 10 feet to get to it, the pulling behavior was massively rewarded.
The hypothesis was confirmed.
Exactly. You have to stop moving the second there is tension on the leash. Forward progress only happens when the leash is slack.
Now, the stakes get even higher when you unclip that leash. The sources offer a sobering reality check about the recall command, teaching the dog to come when called.
Yeah, the mechanism of a strong recall is built on extreme value. You practice indoors, then outside on a long 20-foot training line, rewarding them with the absolute best payouts every single time they return to you.
But the fatal flaw owners make is only calling the dog when the fun is ending.
It's the most common mistake.
Like, if the only time I ever yell come is when it's time to clip the leash on and leave the dog park, the dog quickly learns that coming to me predicts the end of freedom.
Right. Their analytical brain does the math, and they start avoiding you. You have to call them, reward them, and release them back to play multiple times.
That makes total sense. But even with that perfect training, the sources remind us that a highly trained corgi is still a herding dog.
They are never automatically safe off-leash near busy roads or unfamiliar livestock or wildlife. A sprinting deer can override years of training in a fraction of a second.
So what does this all mean for the actual family dynamic inside the house? Because those intense herding instincts don't just magically turn off when you come back inside.
They don't. The living room ecosystem requires just as much active management, especially when kids or other animals are in the mix.
Like, what are the strict rules here?
Active supervision with children is an absolute necessity. You cannot be cooking in the kitchen while a toddler and a corgi are unsupervised in the playroom.
Because kids move fast.
Right. Children cannot be allowed to sprint through the house screaming because it instantly triggers that predatory chase instinct. Kids must be taught never to corner the dog and never to touch the dog while it is sleeping.
The sources address other pets, too. A corgi raised with an indoor cat might adore that specific cat, but predatory drift is real.
Very real. That same dog might chase and kill a stray cat in the backyard because the outdoor context triggers a totally different physiological response.
And when it comes to small prey animals, like hamsters, guinea pigs, birds, the sources are clear.
The only safe policy is secure physical separation. A corgi sitting calmly and staring through the bars of a hamster cage is often experiencing severe barrier frustration.
It tells you absolutely nothing about what they will do if the cage door accidentally opens.
Exactly. The risk of tragedy is just too high.
Let's talk about the dog's personal space and their stuff. Resource guarding and object stealing are huge issues in the sources. Like, a corgi running off with your expensive running shoe is infuriating.
It is, but the sources explain that to the dog, the shoe itself is irrelevant. It's about the chase.
So what happens when they steal the shoe? You yell and run after them.
And for a herding breed, successfully provoking a human into a game of chase is the ultimate victory.
Oh, wow, so you're just playing their game?
To stop the stealing, you have to refuse to play the game. Do not chase them. You teach a calm trade.
How does that work?
You approach quietly with a piece of high-value chicken, offer it in exchange for the shoe, and reward them for making the swap.
Okay, but the stakes change entirely when the dog is guarding something they actually value, like their food bowl.
Oh, definitely.
If a corgi freezes, gives a hard stare, or growls when you walk past their dinner, the traditional human response is panic. People assume the dog is asserting dominance.
Right, and they feel an urgent need to prove who the alpha is by sticking their hands into the dog's food while it eats.
Which is?
That is the most dangerous, counterproductive advice in the dog training world. Growling over food is not a dominance play. It is a display of deep insecurity.
The dog is basically terrified that you, a much larger animal, are going to steal their vital resources.
Exactly. The entire alpha dominance theory was debunked decades ago. It was based on flawed studies of unrelated captive wolves, not natural family packs.
So, forcing a terrified dog onto its back in an alpha role to prove you are the boss just confirms their worst fear.
You are physically overpowering them, proving that you have a dangerous, unpredictable threat. It shatters their trust and almost guarantees the guarding behavior will escalate to a serious bite.
So how do you manage the guarding then?
You manage it by reducing the pressure. You feed them in a quiet, separate room where they feel safe. You walk past and toss a piece of steak into their bowl.
Teaching them that human hands arriving means better food appears, not that their kibble is being stolen.
Exactly. And if the behavior persists, you bring in a qualified, fear-free professional.
That concept of accidental reinforcement applies to jumping on guests, too. We accidentally reward the exact behavior we hate.
We do. A corgi jumping up on your legs is seeking kinetic feedback and attention.
So if you push them away, yell at them, or even laugh, you are providing that kinetic feedback.
You are paying out the reward. To extinguish the jumping, you remove the payout entirely. You turn your back, cross your arms, and become incredibly boring.
Just totally neutral.
Right. You only offer attention and treats when all four paws are firmly on the floor.
That requires so much patience.
Ugh.
And speaking of patience, there's a concept in the sources that completely changes how we view canine stamina. The off switch.
I love this concept.
When a corgi is sprinting frantically around the living room, bouncing off the sofa, barking at shadows, the automatic assumption is that they have a massive surplus of energy and need to be taken on a 5-mile run.
And that is a fundamental misunderstanding of canine physiology. Over-arousal does not always equal unspent physical energy.
So what is it?
Very often, a frantically zooming dog is exactly like an overtired human toddler violently fighting a nap.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense.
Their nervous system is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol from the events of the day, and they literally lack the biological skill to self-soothe.
So you cannot exercise an adrenaline spike out of a dog.
No, you just build a fitter, more manic dog. Rest has to be actively taught as a distinct skill.
How do you teach rest?
You have to capture calmness. When the dog voluntarily chooses to lie down and take a relaxed breath, you quietly drop a treat between their paws. You reinforce the physiological state of relaxation.
You literally teach their brain how to turn off the alarm system.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, you've dialed in the payouts, you've successfully managed the herding instincts, you've taught them how to nap, you have a brilliantly cooperative companion.
A perfect dog.
But then, almost overnight, they start growling when you touch them.
Yeah.
All that training seems to vanish. The source material reveals a crucial diagnostic blind spot for owners here.
Yeah. Sudden, uncharacteristic behavioral regression in an adult dog is almost always a physiological issue, not a training failure. It is a massive red flag for pain.
So a dog that suddenly snaps when you try to lift them into the car isn't forgetting their obedience training.
No, they're using the only communication tool they have to tell you their back is in agony.
And if you interpret a pain response as defiance and punish the dog for it, you are inflicting psychological damage on an animal that is already physically suffering.
It's heartbreaking. Any sudden onset of irritability, hiding, or aggression requires an immediate, thorough veterinary exam.
The same physiological perspective applies to severe separation anxiety, too.
It does.
If you leave the house and the dog spends 3 hours howling, drooling, pacing, and destroying the doorframe, they're not acting out of spite because they are mad you went to dinner without them.
Dogs do not possess the cognitive capacity for spite. Destroying the exit is a symptom of a severe physiological panic attack. Their nervous system is in full fight-or-flight mode.
So it's a medical issue.
True separation anxiety is a medical condition. It frequently requires a structured desensitization plan alongside veterinary support, including anti-anxiety medication, to lower the brain's chemical panic enough for learning to occur.
Which perfectly illustrates why the sources emphasize everyday handling practice. Getting your corgi comfortable with having their paws touched, their ears examined, and standing still on a scale.
It isn't just a cute party trick for the groomer.
Exactly.
It is vital preparation for lifelong medical care. If the dog trusts you to handle their body without fear, a veterinary visit to diagnose a sudden behavioral change becomes a cooperative procedure rather than a traumatic wrestling match.
Let's bring everything full circle back to that opening scene in the kitchen.
The chaotic kitchen.
Right. We have the exact same dog, the exact same busy household. But now we're looking at the trained version of those 5 minutes. Dad jiggles the keys, the kid runs across the floor, the plate of food moves through the room.
But instead of uncoordinated chaos, the dog immediately goes to his quiet mat in the corner.
He gets a high-value paycheck for staying there. The kid walks safely. The door opens calmly.
But notice the crucial detail of what hasn't changed here.
What's that?
That dog is still observing absolutely everything. He tracks the plate with his eyes, his ears pivot to the sound of the keys, he knows the precise location of the child.
That massive personality, that staggering environmental awareness is completely intact.
We haven't suppressed his nature. We've just given him a safer, more highly rewarded job to do.
Because training isn't about erasing an animal's genetic instincts or turning them into a passive robot. It's about establishing clear communication, knowing what motivates them, and providing consistency.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder for anyone sharing their life with one of these remarkable animals.
Let's hear it.
We, as humans, spent centuries selectively breeding the Pembroke Welsh Corgi to be hypervigilant, persistent, highly reactive problem solvers. We literally designed their hardware to control chaotic environments through sheer force of will and intense observation.
We basically built them to do this.
We did. So is it really intellectually honest for us to get angry when they perfectly execute the exact programming we installed?
That is such a profound point. When a corgi anticipates your movement and cuts you off in the kitchen, they're doing exactly what they were built to do.
Exactly.
Maybe what we quickly dismiss as stubbornness is simply our own failure to appreciate their historical perfection. Keep that in mind the next time your little scientist starts running experiments in the living room. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.